I went from 2132 to 2209 in 10 days in June 2025. When I thrive on this channel, so do you, so here are all my secrets and the 10 games that got me to plus 200 points on the year. That weird thing happens where I'm the middle seed of the tournament, and of course, in the first round, I'm paired with the dead last pairing. This is the second time this year this happens to me, and well, I'm matched up against an 1800 national rating and 0 FIDE. Or was he? I had no information on this player other than the fact that he plays e4 and he has all the information in the world on me. So this was the plan. He has 0 FIDE rating, which means he lacks tournament experience. I want to avoid middle game troubles that he can trick me with in the opening. I want to throw him off and make him feel like he will lose the game by making him uncomfortable with my opening from the first move. So my underrated opponent starts with pawn to e4, and from the first move of the game, I want to unbalance my opponent. So I play a move that I have never played in my career so far, completely clueless, pawn to c6. The Caro-Kann defense. My sole goal here is to unbalance my opponent, and the Caro-Kann, they say, Grandmasters say, is the best opening to unbalance your opponent because its construction is completely opposite, pawn structure-wise, than your opponent. So you immediately create that imbalance from the offset. Of course, my opponent played knight f3 here, which I know very little of. And after d5, knight c3, I take and trade, and now knight f6, and my opponent plays a move that I have rarely seen. I think the top move is takes, and then e takes. My opponent played queen e2 here. And if it wasn't for a blitz game that I saw while scrolling my feed on Instagram 2 weeks ago, I had never seen this move before. But in that blitz game that I saw on Instagram, I saw that black took here and then played queen d5, aiming to trade queens. In the blitz game, white went queen h4, and my memory was fuzzy there. But in this game, Braden went with queen f4. And here, I activated the strategist. I don't play the board, I play the player. Use this when facing an opponent with a distinct weakness. Prepare an opening specifically against this weakness. In this position, I'm aiming to trade queens from the offset. I want to stretch this game out to the late endgame so that my opponent may go down on time and face time pressure. Someone with low tournament experience would have trouble facing. And so sure enough, this is also threatening a pawn, so my opponent defends the pawn with d3, which I didn't like because it erases this bishop's presence on the open diagonal, and lets me trade queens because now the queen is defended. So I trade queens. And it looks to me that white is way better because they have central control, they have 2 pieces developed, I have 0, and they have everything going for them. Castling is very fine, development is good, space is good, I'm in trouble. So here, I wanted to play pawn to f6 to go e5, but I hated that white just has d4 preventing. So I played c5 instead, which was an oversight because my opponent called my bluff directly, d4. Attacking this pawn, but once I take, knight takes, and this knight gains a superb footing in the center. Now I go f6, threatening e5, but this is completely lost. Now white has knight b5 threatening this fork, and if I go knight a6 to defend, my knight is locked here for the rest of the game, and I cannot get this knight out that easily without like giving a bishop pair or something super strong. After f6, my opponent misses this and plays bishop b5 check. And now I get to trade, which was super relieving, but now still knight e6 is a problem. But then I found king f5, king f7, only move, forcing this knight out. White's king is their burden right now. If the white king would be castled, even one move, then a rook e1 would keep the knight there indefinitely, and the knight is super strong, but the knight has to scram or take my bishop, and it does, so takes, and now castles. So it's trending towards equal, but I still have some problems on the 7th rank and lack of development. But my king is out, my rooks are connected, so some improvements are there. So I go knight c5, And my opponent goes bishop e3, chasing my knight that's covering this d7 square, which is a very logical move. And now I go rook ac8. Engine says I should have played this rook here, which I don't know why, but it's very interesting. And so now white should play rook he1, but he trades here instead, and after rook d7, attacking my pawn and threatening rook e1 with this super nice pressure, I find an only move in this position, rook fc8. Counterattacking. You don't want your rooks to be passive in a rook endgame. Super important. Rook b8 is the best way to lose in this from this position. But here, if my opponent were to be greedy and take my b7 pawn, something like this check, and then I pick up this one, and it's anyone's game. Actually, black is better. So here my opponent played c3, and this very move to defend against the two rooks battery is the only move I need to now have concrete defense against this rook and bring my rook back, safeguarding my 7th rank. My opponent goes rook hd1, and now I kick this rook and go king f5. And now this entire endgame, the result of this endgame is based on whether which side can A, get their king active, and B, force their majority on the opponent. You see, my opponent has a 3-on-2 against me on the queen side, which is seen as better because my king is far away. And I have a 4-on-3, which is less good because it's harder to concretize a passed pawn from a 4-on-3 versus a 3-on-2, where it's easier to create a passed pawn. So my opponent has the upper hand theoretically, but let's see if he does that. So he goes rook d7. Now I go e5. Very nice move. I play e5 anyways, defend this pawn. My rook is super solid. And so now he takes, he trades here and goes rook d3, and I'm like, wow, so he gave me a free pawn move, a free couple of king moves. This is shaping up really good for me. Now I just have to show progress with my pawn structure and my king. So I go g5, my opponent goes king d2, bringing the king up, but not in the right direction. I would have rathered king c2 and then this, like really trying for these pawns, but the defensive plan is not practically very interesting for white here, in my opinion. So I go h5, b3, and now e4, attacking the rook. And now the rook finds itself very passive. I debated this move so long because I thought check was such an interesting try. The king going here, you never know. It could run into some mating nets. I was looking at this and h3, taking up this square, and then king here, and then g3. But here I have insane e3 check, and takes, and king g3 is winning for black. But here it's very hard. It's a very slippery slope. Anyways, I go king e5 after rook d3. This passive rook move now questions whether these pawns can actually scale up. And my answer is no, I don't think so. These pawns have a very hard time scaling up the board. So after f3, I go f5, takes. And now my opponent did me another solid by giving me a passed pawn. The pawn has no obstacles now, no pawns as obstacles, only this rook and king. And this is a huge source of advantage for the black pieces. So that's another mistake my opponent made. And long story short, I get this file, and then I get this infiltration, which I should have stayed on the back rank, but I make this small mistake. And then my play of the entire game, ladies and gentlemen, to stretch the endgame as long as possible, get him down on time pressure so that he blunders because of his lack of tournament experience, pans out in this very position in which my opponent plays pawn to c4. And my opponent missed a resource here that is completely winning for the black pieces. The pawn moving to c4, sure, it's an attacking move or it's a counterplaying move. It's just ill-timed because now this square is completely empty, and my king can come to d4 and gain some space in the enemy territory. And after rook d2, this is surely what my opponent missed, king c3. I mean, it's debatable. Maybe this is a draw here. No, it's still winning for black. But king c3 to me is clear as day because it puts pressure on this rook. And if takes, I get takes here, king here. And I don't even have to play my pawn up. I can just stop these pawns. And wherever these pawns go from the white piece's perspective, I win pawns. Whatever move is played. It's crazy. So here my opponent plays rook d1, and now I can just swap and go king b2, and this pawn structure is giving some pawns to me. And after c5, he played this very quickly, as if he had something. On king takes a2, there's pawn to b4, But here I played a5, stopping this pawn to b4, and black is victorious. And after the game, of course, Braden revealed to me that he's actually 2300 blitz rating online. I gained 0 points from this, but at least I secured a great pairing for the next morning. My opponent is the 9th seed of the entire tournament and boasts a national rating of 2353 ELO and FIDE 2135. This was very difficult to prepare against because she plays like 5 openings with black against 1 e4. And so I was expecting and preparing against any of those 5 openings. And of course, she plays pawn to c5. And this is not one of the openings she plays. So I activated the anticipator. Let them dance first. I move when the music shifts. Use this when your opponent surprises you with rare preparation. Anticipate by playing normal developing moves and eventually trying to break out of their preparation. And that's exactly what I did. I played my normal moves, let her play her prep. So knight f3, d6, d4, takes. And now I'm like, okay, this could be a dragon, this could be a Najdorf, this could be a classical Sicilian. And sure enough, knight f6, knight c3, and a classical Sicilian we got. So I remembered she did play some of this, but all of that she played was a very long time ago, so I didn't prepare against this. But she prepared against me. So she pulled up my online games and saw what I play against knight c6. So I play the same thing I play OTB, bishop g5, bishop d7. And already here I was feeling a little funky. I'm used to this main move, I believe. And so seeing bishop d7, I was like, oh, okay, something has arisen. So I go queen d2, and now this rook c8 move. Whoa! So again, I anticipate castles, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, anticipatory moves. And after queen a5, I'm very, very out of book. Like now I have no idea what to play. And so when you're playing the anticipator, you have to calm down, play normal developing moves, castle, take the center, etc. So queen a5 looks very scary. It's attacking my bishop. To me, this rook is planning to sacrifice and queen takes a2 maybe. So I have to play very chill right now. The main move is f4, which I didn't know at the time. But more importantly, she had prepared against my online games in which I played bishop takes f6 almost exclusively from this position, which is a big mistake. You're giving up your great bishop for a pretty mid-tier knight. I didn't know this at the time that I played this online, and so I just played the most normal move, which confuses us completely both because it's not the main move and it's not the best move, bishop e3. And this is inaccurate, but in this position, it's very interesting. I'm redirecting a threat to this a7 pawn. And she doesn't know this, and I don't know this. So now we're completely both out of our prep, which is the great second part of the anticipator, play until they're out of book. Mission accomplished. So my opponent plays a6, defending that threat. And now I go f3. So I'm playing the normal moves of the classical Sicilian. This pawn structure is very well known and very good. You're preparing against this knight g4 that's coming to hit your bishop. And overall, you're supporting your e4 pawn and your strong center. So pawn to e6, and now I go king b1. Very good move in the classical Sicilian. You want to play that king move. The thing that's so nice about the classical Sicilian is that it's not like a super memorization-based opening. You can play it like that as the white pieces, but the beauty of this opening, or playing against it, is that it's such an intuitive-based opening. It's pretty practical and intuitive and less super rational and concrete. So that's the huge advantage that I have within being out of book in this specific opening. And so my opponent plays that same intuition on her side. So she goes b5. And so this is completely normal to delay your development and your kingside castle for a very nice pawn storm, a very active pawn storm on the queen side. And so I go g4, my pawn storm is ignited as well. I've castled, I'm developed, g4 is a very rational move. h6, and now I go h4, which is a bit of a mishap. I was threatening g5 last move, and now after this takes, I can't take with the pawn anymore because my rook is hanging, so I have to go rook g1 and then prepare g5. So I'll have to lose another tempo. As well, a3 was the better move here. And again, on the next move, she goes bishop c6. I should have gone a3 here to prepare against this b4 attack on my knight. And so instead, I go rook g1. So very interesting. So I looked at this, but it gives your opponent a hook, which is traditionally not a good thing in chess. Okay, so this rook g1, I'm threatening g5 here, b4, my knight goes back, and now d5, which is a huge thing for the black pieces to accomplish in the classical. You want this d5. And now a little bit of wisdom that I have recycled from previous OTB games from this opening is if you can play e5, you should play e5 in the classical. So I play e5, kicking the knight, and now f4 supporting this e5 pawn. But now my heart drops. In this position, my heart literally skips a beat because I see a game-winning tactic for the black pieces. Here I saw that on bishop c5, my queen can just go back anytime and this bishop is defended super well. But then based on that, I saw this tactic, pawn to b3. Oh my God. And so you're looking at that eval bar and you're saying Zach is full of crap, which admittedly is true, but not at the time for me, because this is a very forcing move. And so I was thinking to myself, okay, so when white takes, now black has bishop c5 attacking here. And so this skewer is very nice because now I can't go queen d2 because of queen takes d2. Whichever I recapture with, I am losing. Rook takes, bishop takes e3. And if bishop takes rook, and I lose in exchange. And if takes, bishop c5, queen d3, there's bishop b5. And now if this, I saw takes, and I was like, oh my God, I can't take this, it's defended. And if takes, bishop a4, and it looks like black has tons of compensation for the pawn sacrificed. Open lines on my king, weak king, tons of activity, it's looking gruesome. What I didn't pick up on in the game was I can take with the c pawn, and after bishop c5, I can go queen d3, and after bishop b5, I go queen c2. And this is the point. The bishop can't take my bishop anymore because I win this rook with check. And so black should castle, defending the rook, reigniting this threat, but then I just take. And then knight takes, and then knight d4. And the knight has no good discoveries. I didn't see this at the time in the game. I showed her the tactic, and she thought it was winning with black, but then we checked the engine after the game, and this is completely winning for white. But she played queen c7 here, and I was like so relieved when she touched the queen. Whew! Here the queen is not the best placed, and we saw that from last variation. It can get dangerous with this bishop c5. But she played queen c7 so that her pawn can march up and play like a pawn storm, right? So I play queen d2 here, very important move. You want to liberate the square for your knight to enter so that your knight can apply the blockade in chess, where a knight blockades a pawn and usually means the bishop behind that pawn structure will always be bad. This knight also supports my f5 push and e6 pressure from that f5 push. So super important that you want a knight here. So after knight c5, I take up the c4 square with my bishop and now play knight d4. She continues with her pawn rush, and I go f5. And now we have two pawn storms on either side of each wing. b3. And now I had to take a long turn here to really defend well, and I think I did. I took, and a3. Blocking the open files, of course, you'll have the engine saying that a takes b3 is the best move, but practically it's such a bad decision because you're just giving your opponent an open file against you. It's not recommended. So I play a3 here, and what this gives is this really weak c2 square, but my knight has that covered. So bishop d7. She has to deal with this e6 take, and now I go rook c1, super nice move, pinning and taking up this open file. Bishop e7, she's trying to castle, but I say no to that immediately with pawn to g5. And here I have all sorts of threats in the air. First of all, I'm threatening a pawn up. Also, I'm threatening to break this pawn structure with g6. Also, maybe f6 things. Also, maybe opening this up. And it's too much pressure to handle. She has to do something about this. And so she takes, and takes on f5. And now I have a lot of options. I can play g6. I can put pressure on this pawn. I can do all sorts of things, but I play bishop takes d5, which was my favorite at the time. Here, I'm pressuring this pawn twice and putting my bishop on a way better diagonal. And my bishop is just an absolute legend there on d5. My opponent takes here, which is somewhat of a greedy move, and now gets the pawn up, but at what cost? The king is in the center, both rooks are disconnected, both bishops are quite passive, and this entire line will be open soon enough. But I have to defend my bishop first, so I go knight f3, defending my bishop and attacking the queen, and after queen d6, I have to find the win here. And it's really not obvious. I was thinking of g6 for such a long time, and really trying with bishop f4, or just bishop f4 immediately, but black has this resource, knight e4. Only move, and black equalizes from this move, redirecting the threat on my queen from this queen. It's just a sensational resource there. So I take a long time and I can't find it. And the move is g6, attacking this, takes, and I had seen takes, and then check, right, to win this bishop. But after king takes, I saw queen takes g1, an absolute beamer of a move, brilliant move, sacrificing the queen. And the idea is after knight takes, rook d8. With the queen sacrificed, I have no way of preventing mate. I have to give up my queen against this rook, and then black is winning the endgame. Absolutely baloney. So what I missed was here, at this point in my calculation, no bishop f7. I have to find rook c1. And here white is better because of queen a5. The king can't castle, queen e8 is coming, and black is in major trouble. +3 completely winning here. So I played queen d4 after a super long think, basically getting away from this knight e4 resource and still threatening this bishop f4. My opponent missed this knight e6, which in the game I was super nervous about because it defends this pawn that's attacked from my last move, and it redirects the threat on the queen, and I have to find a very specific set of moves to equalize, to retain my advantage from this move. But sure enough, she castles, and then I was like, oh, thank God. So now I played bishop f4, kicking the queen goes back, and now g6, attacking this pawn and pinning it as well. The bishop goes to e6, and now I take with check, rook takes, and now knight e5 attacking the rook. And I said to myself, if she plays the move I think she's going to play, I have a winning combination. And sure enough, she played rook to f8. And from here, it is white to play and win. Pause the video to solve the problem. I played the brilliant move, rook takes g6, sacrificing my rook, and it is a brilliant move. King takes, and now I have rook g1. It's based on the fact that this king has no exit squares, and it's kind of in a mating net here, and if you block to create some exit squares, it's still completely over because of this beautiful mate here in 5 moves. So takes, check, and now the king has to go to the edge of the board, check again, and once the king goes back, I have queen back to g1 check, and it will be checkmate on the very next move, and she resigned here, gaining me 25 points of national elo, a huge win for my rating, and my next round is a very interesting pairing. Sai Krishna, a international master who boasts a FIDE rating of 2388 and a national rating of 2600, was my next pairing, having 2 out of 2 in this tournament, and he had a draw the last round, which brought him to 1.5. I got paired against him with the black pieces. Nightmare pairing, I know. With only minutes to prepare for this next pairing, I came up with a very interesting opening. An opening I have only played once else in my career last November, and that was against a lower rated players. I've never played this opening against a higher rated player and play it super rarely online. You guessed it, the French defense. Or you may not have guessed it, there's a lot of options from move 1. But I played the French defense against an IM for the second time in my OTB career in this game. He goes d4, d5, and this was my whole preparation. On knight c3, I go knight f6, and in his last 3 OTB games, including one in Hungary next to the Olympiad, there was an open tournament next to the Olympiad at the time, he went for e5, which is the classical Sicilian. This, the main line of the classical. Knight d7, f4, and then c5, and then I had all of this prepared and memorized in my brain. And so my opponent here activated the Soul Hunter. 99 rating overall. Hunt their confidence, feed on their fear. Leave only shadows on the board. Use this card when a lower rated opponent plays serious looking preparation. Refute with 2 off-track variations to get them lost beyond worry. So here he plays bishop g5, which is not the main line, but still very, very much played. But I'm completely out of book because I only saw e5. So I go bishop e7. It's clear that I'm out of book. The main move here is to take, and this is the main recommendation from Grandmasters. And now my opponent played the second move from the Soul Hunter to get me completely off track. An old line that is not as much played today, pawn to e5, knight d7, and pawn to h4. Pawn h4 is the old line. Here, white is sacrificing a pawn. So I can take here twice and win a pawn. Very scary. But if I do so, I give white the ability to open up the file on this pawn and gain a lot of compensation for this pawn with knight h3, like a lot of tempo moves. And overall, this is not that good for the black pieces. That's what he told me after the game. And he said, you should play h6 here, but what I had seen, I didn't like. So queen takes, and now queen g4. And if I castle, it just looks like I'm going to get ran through with like f4, f5. So I was not very confident about this line. So, okay, what else should black play? Because I'm completely lost here, and I need to justify myself. So I was thinking about c5. So this is the common, normal moves that you have to play against the French defense. But here my opponent would have knight b5. And already he's threatening knight d6 with check, uncastling my king because I can't take because of this pin. It's scary very, very early, right? So I play a6, which is very logical, preventing the knight from going here. And he goes queen g4 immediately. And I'm like, oh my god, this is not good. So now he's putting more pressure on takes. Now he wants queen takes g7. So I have very limited options. I could castle, which is losing because of bishop h6. And after g6, he's just going to take the exchange. Or I could play what I played in the game. So I played rook g8, defending this pawn and foregoing all of my castling rights in this position. And played f4, c5, and now he takes. And here I have one move, one moment in the game to get back the equality. And it's not knight takes, which I played in the game. It's actually knight c6, preventing b4 here so that you can take when it's more comfortable. And so bishop d3, g6, and here black is still fighting for equality, but I had takes, and then eventually I take back this pawn, and I can take and try to equalize as black. And it's actually plus 0.5 at a very high depth. But I take with my knight, and then he takes my bishop. And I'm like, what? He's taking off the tension by taking my bishop? And sure enough, white has a very nice tactic here. If I take with my queen, he has knight takes d5. And my bishop's undefended. So that when I take back this pawn, this knight, queen takes bishop, wins a pawn. And wins the game. I can resign here. So I have to take with my king. And from here on out, I'll spare you the details. It's 30 more moves. But it ended very in a huge catastrophe. My king was in the center the entire game, and I was just completely outplayed on both wings, and I eventually got near checkmated. Like he has rook b3, and I had to resign here. A good effort in preparation, but that's how really good players will play against a very nicely prepared set of moves. They'll just completely beat you, get you off the beaten track, and play old lines, side lines, and get you completely out of book. And this was a very nice performance by my opponent. The next morning, I was playing against someone who was featured in one of my last videos, Zachary Dukic, who with the black pieces plays the same thing against every first move. Zachary Dukic is someone I beat with the black pieces in a few videos ago in a wild game in which I had 3 pieces for the queen. And here we are, face to face once more, only I have the white pieces and he has black. I didn't know this at the time, but with black, he plays the same exact thing against 1 e4, 1 d4, 1 c4. He plays this opening with the use of very, very strong engines from Chessify. Don't know if you've heard of them. These engines are neural engines, so they're from a farm somewhere else in the world, and they are very, very strong engines. So on my local engine on my computer right here, I run Stockfish 17, but it can only go at a certain speed from my local device. But in those farms, the same Stockfish 17 is ran, but it's at a much greater power, so Stockfish 17 can calculate many more moves. And so he uses those engines to play the Philidor defense, which is equal for black if you memorize everything and are willing to play unpleasant things. I highly recommend my video that I did on his game against a Grandmaster later that day with the black pieces with the same opening. It's an absolute insane game. You might have seen it. So he plays d6, and this is this whole thing. It looks like it's going to be a Philidor defense. He goes knight f6, but in fact, after knight at c3, he goes e5, which is the Philidor and not the Pirz. My opponent activated the Systemist. 92 overall, different face, same fate. Activate this card when you achieve supreme memorization, knowledge, and understanding of openings you master. Preparing against you is easier, but your knowledge expands so much wider. And so I go knight f3, knight bd7, bishop c4. So later that day, he played a Grandmaster, and the Grandmaster played rook g1 and g4, which is another variation from this opening that is super popular these days, high engine stuff. But their game went completely ballistic, 25 engine moves, etc. My game, I went bishop c4, which is also like top move, super well played at the highest level, bishop e7, and now I castle, and rook e1. And so my opponent goes with pawn to c6. And here I had prepared a4. And if my opponent goes h6, h3, rook e8, now I can go a5, preventing this b5 stuff. So I go a4, and my opponent beats me to the gun with a5. And this was not in my preparation. a5 stunted me. And here I was like, oh, okay. I don't know this now. So I played pawn to h3. It's all about preventing at these very high engine levels. So I'm preventing knight g4 before I play bishop e3. So it's prophylactics. So he takes, I take with my queen, and now he plays knight b6. Both knight takes and queen takes are playable. And so here from the master games I had seen, notably a Fabiano Caruana game, he played bishop back to f1. But here, it's really important to stop this d5 push. If black gets this d5 push, it gets really scary. This bishop is open, and the c5 square is acquired, and more squares in the center are acquired, because our biggest strength as white is having a lot of center presence and a lot of activity. So I played this quick. I played bishop f1 too quick, and that was my first mistake here, because I should have played bishop here or bishop a2, but I was actually scared on bishop here because of c4 and this thing attacking my bishop. But I was literally seeing ghosts. I should have played bishop a2 and still had an eye on d5. So I went bishop f1, and after d5, I went e5 and then knight back to d7. And now this is very scary. I can't stop these bishop c5 things. So I went bishop f4, knight here. I was like, okay, this bishop c5 black is better, but he went knight here. And what's super scary about the Systemist is that he'll play every single move within 30 seconds and play super fast, like almost instantly. And so you're scared, and that adds to the tension on you and the pressure. And he does it on purpose because he has everything memorized. So it's not human thinking, it's actually just memorization spat onto the board. So now he's preparing knight e6. And then bishop c5, and it's very scary. So I get my bishop out of the way, I go bishop g3, and after bishop f5 attacking my pawn, I have like no good moves to defend this pawn. And so this game, again, I'll spare you the details because we went over the opening, and that was the root of my mistake. it went really south from here. So my opponent got this blockade, got this push in, and from here it's losing. So I go 94, he trades here and goes queen d5, which is an oversight. He should have taken the pawn, but bishop d3, and now he plays knight c4. We trade. This is the best move, by the way. I sack an exchange, and I go bishop takes e6, but I should have gone rook e1 when this queen is out of play, so queen f5, and then queen d1, and I'm preparing like bishop d3 things, and the queen's out of play. It's actually close to equal. That was my last chance. But I sacked the exchange, and I missed something silly. I missed that king f7 here. It was the only move to defend this pawn. I thought I was winning this pawn. And even though this endgame is unclear, I'm down in exchange, but there's low open lines for black, and I even did have a chance to nearly equalize because my opponent sacked a pawn for open lines, but here it gives a nice pass pawn to me, and here I missed this d7, sacrificing my super valuable pass pawn for bishop c7, and after rook takes, bishop takes, and I have minimal drawing chances, much better than 10 moves ago. But anyways, I didn't see it. I kept that pawn, and my position collapsed. My opponent played very, very well to convert this position, and here I had to resign as the white pieces, making it a second loss in a row, and I have a 5th round to play. I'm paired against a 2200, fairly new player. He only started playing like 3 years ago, and he's already 2200. And I have to close out this tournament, but I am extremely tired from these extremely long games. The 5th and final round of this tournament was the most difficult by far. Here I had to play against Maxim Ruskik, who had a national rating of 2200 and FIDE rating of 1982, which I didn't know at the time. That will be important for the result of the game. Before the game, I had a chance to find his secret online account. And this is where I employed and activated the forensic. 98 overall rating. I know you better than yourself. Activate this card when you find your opponent's secret online account. Create deep preparation in their lines until you find a chink in the armor. And sure enough, this leads me to my greater theory, my method, that I call the straight line method. When you have a straight line of what your opponent has memorized from a large database of their games, you can establish a straight line of moves until they don't have it memorized and they don't know what to do, and outplay them from there. The straight line method. Like this video if you want to see the full video dedicated to the straight line method, but I used the straight line method for the first time in this game and in a few games later on in this video. So what does Maxim play? So Maxim plays d4, and here I play a move that I don't play often. Usually I go d5, online, over the board, etc. I played knight f3. No. Knight f6. And against knight f6, unanimously, he goes bishop g5, which is just Trumpowski, but it's uncertain yet. I go e6, and yeah, I can go into the Trumpowski on d5 bishop takes, but I went e6 here. So this is all memorized. So he goes e4 against this unanimously. So I already knew his moves. h6, bishop takes, queen takes, and then knight c3, and I go bishop e4. So basically this opening, white has the center, but you have low space, and black is gonna castle long, and you're gonna at some point hit the center when it counts, but we can't do it yet. So bishop e4, queen d3. So there's two main moves here. He mainly goes queen d3, so I was expecting this, but I was also prepared against queen d2, and now d6. My opponent castled, and now I go knight c6. So knight c6 is a bit less common, and would throw him off track, which I was very pleased to see. And so here, white has a few moves. g3 is one of them. My opponent unanimously, once again, knight f3. We're going straight line, so I get a straight line of moves that I can go through. And so I was still in book here. Bishop d7, bishop e2, and castles long. And now we fizzle out of book, but this is the advantage of the straight line method, of the forensic. From here, we're playing in my territory. I know the plans here for black, which is my major competitive advantage on the white pieces. White might know the moves, but does he know the plans for himself? So he goes king b1, which is one of the best moves, and I go king b8. So we're just aligning our kings here, but this is already a small edge for the black pieces. So he goes rook hf1, and already you can see that white has the center, but he gives the bishop pair. His knights have no future because of my pawn structures and how they're established. And so this knight would be going nowhere, right? And this bishop is bad. It's behind the pawn structure. It's completely trafficked by these 4 pieces. So white is not that good despite their spatial advantage. So it can happen in chess that you have a spatial advantage, but you're not that happy with the placement of your pieces, with the activity of your pieces. And so here I go g5. Very rational and thematic for this opening. You want to go g5 and get a pawn storm here because white is very slow to get a pawn storm here. And yeah, the queen's presence on the king side of the board is very advantageous to get this afoot. So g3, and now I go bishop a5. So he goes knight b5. He's trying to do knight a3 and knight c4 to get my bishop. Very good move. But I go bishop b6 so that this is only reached in a few moves. And in the meantime, I have a lot of pressure built up on this d4 pawn. And that's the basis of it all. And now I'm -1 against this player. And so if he goes here, I have g4 and I win this pawn. So he has to play c3 first, and now I can go e5. Break in the center as promised, forcing this if takes it's positionally losing, but it's already winning for me. d5, I'm -1.5, knight e7. And now the pawn structures have been sorted, and black is going to go f5 soon, or g4, and open up this line against the king, and this c3 move made this whole diagonal vulnerable. Knight g1. I go queen g6. So I'm going for my plan, opening this up, and now this knight looks so silly because white doesn't have the time to go knight a3 and knight c4, the inclination neither. But knight a3 still, I go f5, and black is so in time, the engine is like, this is winning. -2. It's as if I'm a piece for a pawn up in this position, even though material is completely equal. But these -2s with no material difference they're pretty hard to convert. f3, you have to play precisely and well. So f3, here h5, g4, a6, these are all the main moves. I take here, a bit premature, but okay, takes back. And my idea was to play g4, completely lock in this knight, and this bishop too. Make my opponent's pieces worse through restriction in chess. But this was an inaccurate move. And in fact, black has a winning idea here. See if you can find it for yourself. I think it's very redeeming if you do find it, because it's a really nice idea. Pawn c6. I looked at this. I didn't like it. Pawn c6 is a very nice breakthrough. It's a pawn break, and you're threatening takes, and bishop here, so you're threatening to win. But it weakens the structure, and I feel like it weakens my king. And after c4, I was not sure of the proceedings here. Quickly, the engine says bishop c5, attacking this knight, knight c2, and c takes, and now pawn to g4. And here we've created a second line for the black pieces. And why this is so important is that you need 2 weaknesses in chess. So first we have this line and this entire weakness on the king side of the board. And now we've just created the king side of the board. So g4. And now you can see how strong this bishop is. The bishop pair given earlier in the game at move like 4 is now really hurting the white pieces because my bishop is absolutely lasering through my opponent's camp, taking up vital e3 and f2 squares and combining with this pawn to take up light and dark squares. So my opponent goes knight c4, tries to take my bishop out immediately, but I had this resource in mind. Bishop b5, queen c2, and bishop takes c4. Bishop takes c4, bishop takes c4, and now my bishop can live happily ever after. So it's more of a bishop against this bishop. So this bishop outside of the pawn structure, super nicely placed against this bishop behind the pawn structure, dullly placed. but the advantage has kind of evaporated because c6 is less and less good for the black pieces. So now I go with rook f8, trying to play against this open file. Queen g2, and now knight g8. I'm trying to reroute my knight, or play rook f6 and then double the rooks on this file to gain the file. If I gain the file, I can gain the game. My opponent plays bishop d3, and so I play queen g7. I was so mixed up in my plans here, very tired from the entire tournament, and really just not in the right headspace. The best move here was rook f6, but I, for some reason, didn't like what I saw. So takes, knight takes. Oh. So anyways, I play queen g7, knight e2, takes, and here I realized a few moves later when I tried to double down on this file that my advantage had evaporated completely, and after queen takes, it's an equal game, and I really have nothing to play for. And so I offered a draw, and my opponent accepted it, but I was very proud of this game. Actually, I was more proud of this game than my win earlier on in the tournament against the 2300, because this preparation was a landmark for me. I prepared 15 moves, had the plan, outplayed my opponent, got an advantage. It was flawless preparation, one of the best, singular best preps I had ever done in my life. With this final edition, I earn a total of 41 points on the tournament, plus 20 is added on if you reach your peak rating from your peak rating. So if you reach a peak rating in my federation, you get plus 20 points extra added on, and we go on to our second tournament. In back-to-back weekends, I had my second tournament, and boy, this was a fun one. It consisted of 1 Grandmaster, 2 International Masters, and a lot of titled players ahead of me. A few months ago, I played a rapidly improving 11-year-old due to a string of only moves in an endgame. It was this one, rook e1, I played this, and I had to find this, and then queen b2 check, picking up the pawn and winning the game. Flash forward to today, and he seeks his revenge, this time with the white pieces. Having seen an older game from the past year against d4, I played again knight f6. I'm very proud of myself. This is 2 knight f6 games. So c4, e6, and what I prepared is a Nimzo Indian defense. The first time I play this over the board. Reason is, well, I have a file on this, but it's just so hard to get over the board. So few people play knight c3 nowadays. So I played bishop b4 for the first time. And it's good to try out new openings against lower rated players, especially when it's new prep. So my opponent in the 1 year ago game played bishop d2. And, you know, 11-year-old players, they learn fast, and he played queen c2 very confidently on the board. And so I was like, oh, I did not look at queen c2. I did. I did in a very limited fashion. And this is when I activated the flexible octopus. 95 overall rating, tentacles weave, theory snaps. Combat your opponent's mainline opening with a flexible sideline to steer away from the bulk of your opponent's knowledge. So this was on the fly. I checked this a little bit after the game because there are so many types of moves against bishop b4. You kind of have to be prepared against all of them. So I checked queen c2, and here I played d5. Normal, you can castle as well. C takes, and here was my flexible octopus. Queen takes d5, a little known move, little played. This is played, queen takes is played at high level, infrequently I would say. And the idea here is that this knight is pinned, and we get our queen out, so that's anti-opening, right? But after knight f3, just a normal developing move, defending this pawn. Here I go queen f5. And I'm kind of employing the strategist early on so that I can stretch this game into an endgame and put pressure on him in that phase of the game. Against young, underrated players, I've seen that this method, for me, has led to tremendous results, as you've seen in my latest recaps. So queen f5, proposing a queen trade, and he takes, and now takes. And this entire endgame is extremely interesting to me at least. I've never been a big fan of endgames, but precisely this construction of, okay, we have doubled pawns, but this pawn here is taking up a vital central square. And we have a 3-on-2, but it's not a really good 3-on-2 because this pawn can't push because of this central pawn. So, okay, I go this step by step. Bishop d2. I go c6. So very nice restriction that we learned from last game is really effective. So this knight is really bad because of these two pawns taking up 3 of its most valuable squares. So pawn to e3, developing, super normal move. And now I go castles, bishop d3, and I go h6. You see, I want to develop this bishop, but knight g5 to me caused problems. So h6, and now we're in very uncharted territories. Like this has almost never happened before. So h6. My opponent goes castles, and I go bishop e6 here. So my bishop sits nicely on e6, overlooks kind of this queen side of the board, and after rook fc1, he played this very fast. I was like, whoa, very intriguing. I complete my development with knight bd7. Okay, let's go through the plans that we have here. White are most likely going to have some play on the queen side of the board, having a very flexible yet forcing pawn storm. Whereas I kind of have a pawn majority of 4-on-3 on this king side, so this g5 move and moves around it are quite natural to me, to my eye. Sure enough, my opponent goes a3. I go bishop back to d6 and knight a4. I go rook fd8, and this is like some deep stuff, like after takes I want takes. And this is where my opponents kind of played badly, like kind of plays passive bishop e2 move out of fear. So on this, he didn't like that my rook opens up here, but he should have gone for b4 and kind of ignored my last move. That's how you outplay. So bishop e2, I go knight e4, attacking this bishop, and that's what I didn't like about this last move, is that the bishop is not on d3 anymore, and my knight inherits this marvelous square, pointing at f2 and this bishop. My opponent plays very well. He plays this very diligent bishop e1 move, which is, I heard Magnus Carlsen for the first time talk about this bishop. The bishop takes up all of the knight's forward-looking squares on e1, and this happens in Sveshnikov's when a knight is here and a bishop is placed on e8 to do the same exact function. So this is a nice placement for the bishop, and it doesn't lock in this rook here. So very nice placement by my opponent. I go f4. And here's when black inherits a small edge. I was very happy to get this on the board. Again, the bishop moving back gives me a small territorial aspect to it. There's less pressure on f4. So I can trade off my doubled pawns and create a weakness within my opponent's zone. So he goes knight c3. And here I should have just defended with a knight, so I can take back with the knight and instill my knight here. But I play a small mishap. I play f5, so as to take back this knight with some tempo on this one. But the problem with f5 is that once takes, and the knight moves, I have to defend this pawn. Whereas if a knight would be here, I could support it here, and it's just a little bit better. And so here, this is still equal. So I go knight f6 and knight c4. Attacking my bishop, I have to go back, and now white gains that kind of minority attack in which 2 pawns are attacking against 3 on the queen side, and yeah, it can create a lot of weaknesses. This is very serious. So I go knight d5, pressuring here, and blockading, as we saw earlier on in this video, in the Svetlana game. So g3, and this is a critical moment. Try to find the move, or the set of moves, that makes black better. And I couldn't find it in the game. Apparently this f3, closing out everything, is the best move here for black. Very interesting, right? Because the bishop goes to f1, and I guess that this is imposing restriction on the white king, and long term I have an advantage. But to me, this was a no-go because white has all the play and I have no play in this position. So my highly rated players, let me know why this is so intuitively good for black, because I didn't very much understand this concept. So I wanted to keep the tension. So I played g5. Very nice move to me, but it's less good of a move objectively, which is very interesting. So here I keep the tension. So this is always attacked and this is always attacked. My opponent plays bishop d2 here, putting up the pressure here, and this f3 move is now +1 for black. Very interesting, right? But I played king h8, a highly prophylactic move. Here I'm clearing this square in case this g file opens up. Knight a5. looking scary. He's kind of going for my weaknesses, typical of this minority attack, opening up the rook, and I go rook a b8, and now rook b1. And I was like, why is he going rook b1? Kind of a weird move, right? Like, okay, maybe b5. And I understood only after my next move. So I go rook f8. So I'm trying my counter-attacking play on the king side, and now my opponent goes knight b3. And I go, oh, this is serious. This is a serious player, super underrated as an 1800. He's preparing knight c5, attacking my bishop and kind of gluing a knight on c5, attacking this as well. Very annoying move. So I played rook be8, defending this pawn after knight c5 and bishop c8. But this is giving an edge because of b5, and now my opponent has an advantage. This minority attack, very strong. And now the rook is lit up on the b file, super, super good. So I took a long turn here, pressed against the wall, and I played pawn to b6. And against knight a6, I take here, takes. Against knight a4, I think I would have taken. My opponent plays knight b3. And I didn't like this. This is the second move I didn't like. First, it was bishop back here. Second, knight b3. I don't like this move. The knight has no future because my pawn restricts it for the rest of the game. And when this knight has no future, this rook has less of a future. Instead, knight a6 was winning. But now this position is equal again. So I takes. It was still very scary because after I move... Oh yeah, if I move my rook, bishop c6 here. And then this is all exposed. So I find this very nice move. F takes c3. You have to time this opening up of the f file at the right moment. And so f takes, and now rook d8. I move my rook out of this attack. The king moves. And I go, what? Just so ill-timed. He has to come here and make threats and infiltrate into my zone. But this invites like some rook f3 things. But rook f3 is not directly winning so far right now because of bishop e2. And so this has no time, has no timing. Takes, rook takes, and king f2. And my rook is trapped. So I couldn't find that, what to do there. So instead, I brought my bishop back so that I can free my knight. And so there's no rook presence on here. So I'm doing this, and then this, and then my bishop is not gaping on c7. And then my opponent played something very weird. He played pawn to h3. And I'm like, what? Surely he missed rook f3, infiltration. And now this works. On bishop e2 now, this pawn is also done for. And so he played rook e1. He's clearly distorted now. And after check, takes, and check, and bishop g4, I'm threatening all sorts of mating stuff, and my opponent resigned. Wow, I escaped that because it was looking very, very scary in the middle game, even to the point where I had much lower time than my opponent. But we win, and we move on to round 2. I had trouble sleeping that night because I had not seen the pairing, and I didn't want to know the pairing because I prepare my early rounds in the morning right before, like 2-3 hours before, but I couldn't sleep for some reason. And that reason was that, and I compute it while I'm ruminating at night in the dark, trying to figure out in my head why I can't fall asleep. And the reason was I calculated that I was playing against the top 3 seeds of the tournament. Given how it works, I kind of calculated who I would play the next morning, and then I went to check the computer. It was like 2 a.m., and I saw I was playing Grandmaster Shawn Lemieux for the second time in 2025. Now, Shawn was in 2 of my last videos at the time that I'm recording this. And so Shawn plays a variety of openings, but he's known for playing c6, the Caro-Kann against e4. I prepared against c6, and I prepared against what he played 3 months ago against me, e5, but he didn't play any of those. He surprised me with c5. Ouch. I play the anticipator, go knight f3, pawn to e6, and now I had a thought. Shawn might not have seen the video in which I won a tournament and played in the second round pawn to g3 in this very opening to play against e6. As I explained in that video, after takes, black has an array of options and it's hard to meet any of these and be prepared for all three of them. They're extremely different openings. So I played the prep that I played then. Pawn to g3, the sideline specialist is activated. Use this card when you target an opponent using a relatively new opening, which is the case for Shawn here. Use a sideline from a master game to surprise your opponent out of their preparation. Now, I explained everything I explained when I played it in my last recap, but basically this is from a game, Jordan van Voorst against Levin Aronian, in which Jordan, one of the top players from the Netherlands, used this prep to sideline against 2e6 in the Sicilian and avoid the Khan, the Taimanov, the 4-knight Sicilian, and had a very good game and beat one of the greatest players of all time. So I played g3 here, and my opponent was distinctly out of book. And here we have Shawn Rodrigue-Lemieux with us today to talk about how he felt during the game.
So when you played g3, I thought you were going to play the closed Sicilian. So knight c6 looked natural to me, but then you kind of transposed back into the open Sicilian. So after I took, I was like, well, this is kind of a Taimanov with g3. I'm not super familiar with this. So this is why I was a bit confused. I started spending some time, but I thought, since you played g3 and you haven't played knight c3 yet, I really feel like I should break into the center and open up the position before you're able to play bishop g2 and castle. Like in any of those Sicilian positions, I feel like if you can play d5, you should play d5.
So he plays d5, which is not an intuitive move for the opening, and I take because I'm out of book. I forgot my file from 2 tournaments ago. And so Shawn takes, threatening to these two, and I take here. And if he takes, it's mate on d8. So he has to take here, but he keeps the threat here, which is very interesting because it prevents me from castling very comfortably. And instead I have to move my rook. And now knight f6, and he has actually a small edge out of the opening. But we both don't know this. We're both out of book, which is good. You want to get a Grandmaster out of book in the opening. Magnus Carlsen said this: you have to stun your opponent 3 times to beat a Grandmaster. Once in the opening, once in the middle game, and finally once in the end game. And so checklist in the opening is done. So I go bishop g2 attacking the queen. The queen moves here, and now I play bishop e3, a huge bluff. My opponent can take here, but I had seen bishop d4. Quite interesting. And on bishop b4, king f1, and the queen is trapped. And so maybe he saw that and just said, I'm not going to take the pawn, but here he has, okay, he still has bishop, queen here, and I had seen c3, and I had seen a lot of compensation for the white pieces in the form of activity and development. So 3 tempi against a pawn, but my opponent didn't think about taking it and played bishop c5, which I was happy to see because I thought, okay, black can play this, but it's really hard practically. Okay, I take, knight queen takes, and I play knight c3. So it's a very equal game. And it was a very equal game for a long time here. A few moves here, and then he played bishop g4. I played rook d1, and now rook f8. And here I took a super long turn. White is better. And I had sort of a feeling that I can get myself out of this, but it's hard to think here. Rook is coming in, e4 can come in, this bishop is kind of slicing through my zone, the queen has some nice pressure here, and ultimately I played a move, settled for a move that gives my advantage. And I kind of knew it at the time. That's why it took such a long time to play it actually. And Shawn here told me what he found during the game.
I thought I was totally fine here during the game. I thought I might be even slightly better. But it turns out I think actually white is probably the one who's in a better position now. I would say what I was quite worried about before we played knight e4 was h3 followed by queen e3. I thought you might try to do this to sort of force a queen trade in a way. So let's say that you go h3. I have some options for my bishop. I can go to f5. I can go to e6. I can potentially go to h5, although I'm not sure if I want to give you g4 with tempo.
Right.
But I thought, let's say I go bishop b6, which would be a relatively nice square for my bishop. Then queen e3 happens, and you're attacking my e5 pawn twice. I feel like I might have to trade queens in this case. So I wasn't too thrilled with this. So I thought maybe I'll go to f5. But then again, I give you tempo with g4, and all of a sudden it feels like your attack is kind of progressing faster than mine. But I mean, it's really hard to say because 94 is such a logical move. You know, you want to take back with the bishop, activate your pieces. But yeah, maybe this tempo is important for black.
The rook a d8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think it gives you some play, and suddenly your position looks quite active, and your attack is like back alive. And here it was quite obvious to me that I had given one of the main key defenders of my king, the knight on c3. But the game is still equal, although kings are opposite side castled, and it's kind of very boring. That's not what I meant. The kings are opposite side castles, and both sides have raging attacks, but mine is not really a rager because I can't get this started, and my opponent has all the cards. So it's a 2-result game for the black pieces, either a draw or a win for black. My opponent goes b5, and I go f3, kicking the bishop, and go bishop c6. My point is, I want to trade bishops here to try to draw this game. Best case scenario, I trade the queens and trade the bishops, and it's 2 rooks endgame, and I have a very clear chance at a draw. So I play bishop c6 with this really nice idea. Rook e7 and now rook d1, proposing a rook trade. I knew he wouldn't go for it because after takes, I have rook takes, and this is suddenly winning for white. So I have some really nice ideas on this king. Queen c5 is coming. So he has to play rook c8, which is forced, and now bishop d5, forcing kind of the trade of bishops. So he goes b4, and he has a small edge here. So I take, rook takes, and I was happy that I got those bishops off and played rook d3 here, defending. h6, king b1, and now he goes queen c7. I defend, and now he goes a5. I play rook b3. My rook is looking very close to being completely trapped. But he takes, I take, and now he goes rook c6. So here I think it's got to be equal. It's got to be drawish, at least from computer opinion. So I go queen d2, rook c5, and now rook d3. So I'm taking that open file and trying to kick the queen out to trade rooks here. So he goes a4, I go rook d7, rook queen b6. I want this square to play rook d8 and trade rooks. So I go rook d6 and queen b8, and now rook d1, and I'm threatening this to trade everything. And now Shawn plays a very sneaky move, a3. And here is his comments about this position.
Like, I thought you were going to go queen d3. So, the truth is, I don't know if I have too much to say about this moment.
Okay.
Like, I think it's a good moment. I like it. I'm just not sure what I'm going to say.
Yeah, so I can show you the line beforehand, and you can...
Yeah.
Okay, so...
I kind of checked it a little bit.
Yeah, so white has one way to draw, to equalize, and it's to go into the super ugly rook endgame. But I want to know your evaluation of this. You probably saw this line. I saw this line, and I was like, this is like winning for black, at least practically.
Yeah. I saw this line, I was like, I hope he doesn't play it.
Really?
I hope, but I was like, I think he's just going to go queen d3. And if he plays b3, then we'll see what happens.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
So I play check, he plays this, and then this. And I don't know it's a draw. I just think that black has a really superior pawn than mine. But I can slow his pawn down with queen d5. And here is Shawn to talk about the end of the game. Our next key moment is here after c4. We have a very interesting pawn race in which my queen is kind of stopping your pawn through this pin while my pawn can advance, but I'm one tempo down, so your pawn seems a little bit faster. What did you make of this position, Shawn?
You know, I was getting kind of worried here because, first of all, I was hoping that we wouldn't get to that position. I saw it many moves ahead, and I was like, well, this might be winning, this might be a draw. I'm not really sure how I'm going to progress here, because it feels like my pawn is really advanced and my king is relatively safe. On the other hand, your queen is so active that if I try to move my queen and push the pawn, then you might pin my pawn like you're doing right now. Or, you know, I always have to watch out for the pawn on f5, because if you ever take that pawn, then there's a very good chance that you'll have perpetual. So I was like, well, you know, maybe I'll have to go queen f2 and then play e3, but that takes some time. And then in the meantime, you have time to push your pawn. So I really wasn't sure how to assess this position. So I played queen f2, c5, e3. So far so good. We're both pushing pawns. c6, e2, and now c7. And this is another critical moment. I thought, do I give a check on a7? Or do I queen? But I would also allow you to queen. So I thought, let's say I could promote. This would be super interesting because then we have 4 queens on the board. And this is something that we almost never see as chess players, but it's one of the most exciting possibilities in chess, having so many queens on the board. But then I thought, the way I usually see those positions is the first person who can give a check, the first person who gets the initiative, usually wins with so many queens on the board. The problem is your queen on d5 is so centralized, and I can give one check, then king b3, then I can even give maybe a second check, let's say queen e3, queen e3, but then you go back with queen c3, and then I just wasn't sure how to make progress, right? Mm-hmm. And this is why, in the end, after c7, I chose to pick queen a7. Now, I don't know how you felt about the situation with 4 queens.
I wanted it because I saw exactly what you showed until there, and I stopped calculating until there, and I was like, I think it's okay. Again, like, it's a 2-result game for you, so if I can manage a draw out of these lines from my brain, I'm kind of satisfied. But Queen A7 definitely is the most risky one for me from my approach, in my opinion.
For sure. And I also wanted to keep it safe. I didn't want to get into this position with 4 queens, and anything can happen. Any inaccuracy or mistake can cost you the game. So I thought, let's play it safe. Let's play queen a7. But then, as I realized, I felt like you have very good drawing chances here. But it was still super interesting. So queen a7. Now, of course, you cannot go back to b1 because a queen would check. You have to go to b3. And then I thought, I can take on c7, but then you take on f5. And then again, there's a very good chance of perpetual. Or, if not perpetual, like let's say I take on c7, you take on f5, I play g6, so I avoid the checks. But then, after queen e4, I wasn't really sure how to make progress. I wasn't sure if I would be able to protect my pawn, or at least I thought I would be able to protect it, but then I wouldn't be able to make progress. So that's why in the end I chose, after king b3, I chose to play queen b6. I thought, let's give another check, let's see what he does, and then we'll figure it out. So you played king a2, which surprised me, honestly, because I thought you were going to c2 in this position.
Knight.
What did you think about this?
Knight.
Yes. That's what I was maybe planning to do this. But then I thought, if I make a knight, I give a check. But then, well, my pawn was kind of useless because I didn't make a queen out of it.
So wait.
King d1.
It doesn't work.
And then it doesn't work because now you're threatening to promote. You're also threatening f5, and you're threatening the knight. So,
oh my god, it doesn't work. I stopped calculating at e1 knight. Oh my, I thought I was giving a piece.
Yeah, I thought, well, you're giving it, but then you're getting it back. And if I'm not careful, then you're also promoting to a knight. Or to a queen, I mean. But yeah, so I was kind of scared of this move. I thought, well, now I can take on c7 with check. That's great. But then king d2. And now you're stopping my pawn. So here I thought, well, maybe the best thing I can do is play e1, make you take, and then play queen c1. And let's say king f2, queen takes b2, king g1. And I thought here, I have a queen endgame with 3 versus 2, but all on the same side. So this should be a draw objectively. And I was kind of scared because I thought, you're a good player. I thought I wouldn't have a lot of chances to beat you in this. So I was really scared to go with this. So I think that's why I was happy when you played king a2. I thought, okay, he's not going into this 3 versus 2 endgame. So I thought I had another chance. And yeah, I thought now I can take on c7. You take on f5. And here is arguably the most critical moment of the game. So in this position, basically, you're giving me a check. And your next move is probably to try to stop my pawn with your queen e4 or maybe queen e6, depending on my move. And here I thought, basically, I thought you had lost the game. I thought I was winning. And I would say during the game, this is why I was so surprised when you played king a2, because I thought after king a2, queen takes c7, queen takes f5, I thought I was winning after g6.
Oh.
Because I thought, well, you don't have many ways to stop my pawn. You have to go queen e4. Right. But then I thought I go queen a5, king b3, and then I promote like this. And I thought I was winning like this. But then, as soon as I played g6, I realized, what am I doing? You can simply go queen e6, and then if I try to do the same thing, queen a5 and promote. That's great. I have 2 queens now. I'm up a queen. But now you have queen f7 and perpetual. Right. So I was devastated when I played g6, and I realized immediately, oh my god, he has queen e6. So I was hoping you would have played, but of course, that was just false hope. And you immediately played queen e6. So basically, the win was to play king g8. Did you see that during the game? I was curious.
I didn't see queen f7. I saw king g8, but then I thought I was going to win the pawn. To be honest, like I blundered in my thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I also assumed the same thing. I thought, well, I cannot go king g8 because he has queen e6 and there's nothing. But then that's the problem with the king on a2 here. I have queen f7 and I'm pinning your queen, and then you cannot stop me. And yeah, now if you do again queen e4, now I still have queen a5 as I did in the previous line.
Right.
And yeah, and if you try to stop me with queen f2, then queen f7 still trades queens.
Ooh, I didn't see that one. That's nice.
Also, queen f5 would work as well. But yeah, so king g8 wins instantly. And somehow we both missed it. I think there was just a blind spot for king g8 in this game.
Right.
So I played g6. And then after queen e6, I thought, well, it's going to be a draw for sure now. There's nothing else I can do. But then I thought, well, I can try to bring my queen to f2. At least I prevent you from playing queen f7 check. And I thought if you start giving me checks with queen e7, then maybe I'll try to escape with my king. And maybe eventually I'll be able to come to, let's say, h3 or even g2 with the king. That was my dream. So I brought my queen to f2. And then you started giving me checks. And here you have to be careful, right? Because if you go queen e7, now again, queen f7 ends the game. But then you played well. You found queen e5, which is a nice move. Now, of course, I cannot block with the queen because then e2 would be hanging. So I have to escape with the king. And then you played this queen c7 move. And here, you know, I feel like we both assumed that it was going to be a draw and that I had to try to go up with the king, right? I guess you also had the same thought.
Yes.
But when I realized when I checked with Engine, actually, it's kind of funny because right after the game, I turned on my phone. The game was on the broadcast. So I looked at the analysis and I realized that I missed king g8 the first time a few moves ago. But I quickly went over the game and I didn't realize that I also had king g8 here, which was also winning. So I don't know what happened. I looked quickly on the analysis and I didn't see that king g8 was winning. I think it was only like later in the evening that I checked again for fun and I realized I have king g8. And the key here is that you have to give me a check, let's say from d8 or from c8. But in both cases, I'm going to go king g7. And now you don't have this queen e5 check that you had earlier, right? And if you give me a check from e7 or d7, then I have queen f7.
Yep.
But I think we both completely forgot about this at this point. I think we'd been playing for maybe 4 hours. So,
and we had 1 minute on the clock. It's very important to say.
Oh, yeah, that's a very important detail. So, you know, we didn't have a lot of time to think. And, you know, the pressure was high. There was a lot of tension here. So, I was just fixated on my goal to bring the king to maybe h3 or to just hide behind your pawns. I really wasn't thinking about going back. Right? So, I played king e6. Then you were giving me checks. And you gave me some very good checks. Like queen h8 was a good move. And actually, there were some funny lines. I'm sure you were hoping for those in the game. But there are some lines where I go like king e3 and I actually get checkmated. Like if I try to go to d2, then I get mated with queen c3, queen c2, and queen c1. So it's actually really easy to lose. And, you know, you put your king on the wrong square and suddenly it's checkmate.
Right.
So I had to be careful. And there was also another moment I think maybe you were hoping for in the game. So with all those checks, I was thinking, let's say I go to f3. Then you would give, I think, queen c6 check.
100%.
King g4. And if let's say you go, let's say you go queen e6. That's actually what I was worried about. Because now I cannot go queen f5. I cannot go king h3. I thought I might have to go to h5 to avoid the checks.
You told me this after the game. And right. I didn't know this, for the record. So go ahead.
Right, I think you were planning to go like queen e5 or something. Right. And then after g5, it gets
queen
kind
E8.
of messy.
Yeah.
Queen e8, king g4, and it would still be a draw.
Yes.
Right? But it's actually losing for black because of queen h3, queen h4, and g4. And now discover check and even the queen. So, you know, I started to get nervous because I realized like there's one way I can get checkmated, there's another way I can lose my queen. So I thought I really have to be careful not to hang a discovered attack or even a checkmate. So that's why I went to d4. So we repeated a little bit. You just kept giving me all the right checks. And then after king f6, I think this is where the final mistake happened. So basically, I think what white should do is just to play queen d6 and keep giving me checks like you were doing earlier. The problem is here you went queen d8, which was a big mistake, right? Unfortunately. Because now the key is I go back to g7 finally. And it's a bit, I think it's the same position that we had in a previous variation, where you cannot give me a check on e5 anymore. Your only checks are from c7, d7, or e7, and then I block with queen f7, counter check. And you don't have the d4 square for your queen either. So that was so unfortunate for you. Because you played such a good game, you defended so well for so long, and then, in time pressure with all the nerves, one mistake just was so costly.
That I'm not frustrated about in hindsight, because it's part of the game. But yeah, I thought that I think I made the game so drawish, and you found a nice way to always keep fighting. And I think that because of that, you deserve to win. You deserve to win that game.
Thank you.
Yeah. And my rating goes down 2 points from this game. Feeling sad but oddly focused, I prepared for my next opponent in round 3. I only had like 10-15 minutes, and by luck, miracle of the draw, I find his online account and am able to do the straight line method. I find a straight line of moves from his very first move of the game and can memorize and find the plans to dethrone him. From move 0, I was playing this 2000 rated opponent and I activated the forensic. I know you better than yourself. Activate this card when you find your opponent's secret online account. Create deep prep in their lines until you find a chink in their armor. And that's what I did. At its best, this card is a 98 overall. It is super, super good. And following the straight line method that I had in the last game of that last tournament, bringing it onto this one, this is an even better example of the straight line method. My opponent goes d4. I play a move that I've played 3 times in my last 2 tournaments now, knight f6. I usually play d5. It's so crazy. So c4, e6, this is what I had prepared. On knight c3, Nimzo Indian, but my opponent plays knight f3, which invites one of a few openings. You can play the Bogo Indian, you can play the Queen's Indian, you can play the modern Benoni, or you can play the Queen's Gambit declined. So I played c5, the Benoni. I've never played the Benoni in my entire being, in my existence over the board. It is a super sharp, pretty dubious in modern times opening. c5. My opponent plays d5. I take, and now d6. So you want to prevent this pawn from going to d6. This is all memorized. Knight c3. He's playing fast too, because this is clearly from his online account memorized moves that he plays instantly online. So I played g6, and he plays this very original h3 on this move, 7h3. So I was like, okay, I prepared against this. Bishop g7. So he's preventing bishop g4 and takes, which in the Benoni you want to prevent with white. So it's a big debate whether white sacrifices the extra tempo and plays h3 to prevent bishop g4, or just goes about their development instantly with this bishop d3, knight here. But e4, castles, and now bishop d3, and because I have this extra tempo because of h3, I can play b5 in this position, sacrificing a pawn 2 ways, still in book. If bishop takes, I really like this line. I could play knight takes e4, and after the knight takes, sacrificing the knight, I go queen a5 check with a fork on these 2 pieces, and when the knight comes back to defend, I can play takes, and queen takes, preventing castles, and rook e8 is coming. This is pretty winning. So white has to give up this bishop with knight fd2 here, and then queen takes, and it's the same principle. I prevent castling, and I unbalance the position, and it's very interesting. Knight takes, and queen a6. My opponent takes with the knight instead of with the bishop, which we just saw. So I went with rook e8. He always plays this once again. So I was still in book, wired in 10 moves into the game. These 10 moves were played in like 3 minutes over the board. Back, 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 back. But this is the catch. Castles, I win the pawn back. Bishop takes, Bishop g5, he always plays this. Queen d7, I had checked before the game. 13 moves of theory in. Knight c3, rook back. Queen d2, knight a6. 15 moves of theory in. Rook fe1, he always plays. Bishop b7, and now I'm out of book. 16 moves of theory raw on that board. And I am still in prep. Not for the specific moves, but for the plans of the position. So that's what's very important about the straight line method, is that you need to know what are the plans from the position you emerge out of book from. So what are the plans here? Knight c7 and pressuring d5 until it collapses. That's the entire plan. So that's why I played knight a6. That's why I played bishop b7. It's to go knight c7 and pressure with these two minor pieces. So here he goes bishop h6. And I make my first mistake of the game. I should have conserved this bishop because this bishop is worth more than this one being on the very long diagonal. So it's very straightforward. But I thought that I could just waste the tempo and go knight c7. And this move is also very playable. It's an excellent move. So what? I'm giving the exchange, but I have this fast forward move, knight c7, and pressuring this in a fast forward motion. So my opponent goes knight g5. But knight g5 to get knight e4 in is the wrong plan because white's focus should be on holding this pawn. Actually, this pawn is very close from collapse. So another thing that you need to know about the Benoni, which I had studied the opening like a year ago or a year and a half ago, but I never saw it over the board, so I let go of it, is that the Benoni, inherently you want to trade pieces because you're low on space. And with the lesser pieces that you have on the board, the more this pawn becomes weak. So that's the entire thing. So I take, and play rook here. Very simple, right? Knowing the plans, knowing the forecast you want out of the opening will help you greatly in your games to outplay your opponents. And sure enough, he takes here. And now he plays a very fast move because I knew this was not a good move, but this is fast. Knight here. And now I proceed to take a 30-minute turn because the next sequence of moves is super sharp. And if it doesn't work for black, I'm in trouble. So I better get it exactly. And so I'm calculating 14, 15, 20, 25 moves deep from this position because it's easier to calculate. There's less pieces on the board. And I have a lot of time on my clock because I've been playing so fast. So I use my time appropriately here. Queen e5. And this is why it's sharp. White has this make or break f4 move. And the question is, can black play queen d4? And if they can, is this winning? And let me tell you, black can, and it's winning. I had calculated everything. Queen d4 check. This is a fork, but the queen's defended here. So I did have to calculate king f1. Problem with king f1 is I have this. And then my queen emerges on g1 with mate. So the second option I had to calculate was this. But then I have knight takes d5. And then takes, I'm up a pawn clear. Actually, I think it's more than that. So takes. If knight takes here, I have bishop takes, and I win a second pawn, which is very useful because these are not the best pawns up ever. So knight f2 is also not possible because I can take the queen. So queen takes d4 to me was forced, and he played it immediately. He didn't even calculate what my plans were. He just played this immediately. I thought it was too much of blitzing out. Maybe he was put off by the fact that I played the opening so fast, even though it was completely calculated risk. But I think he got carried away with the fact that I was playing fast and needed to match that. So that was not the right decision because this is winning for black. So takes, and now he goes knight e2. And here, black has a few options. Knight takes, bishop takes, and d3. Try to pause the video if you wish and see which one you would go with. So first, I calculated d3. I thought this was obviously winning. So after knight c3, it's very clear to me that knight takes d5. And if takes knight here, defending this and attacking my bishop, I can go pawn to d2, threatening this pawn. And now black can go b3, and now I can go bishop e4. So you still can't take because I queen, and now king here, bishop here, and now king here. And I couldn't find a way through. But then I found d5. And I was like, oh. because now d4 is coming. And now if king here, I win these pawns. So he has to play g3 first, liberate this, lose a tempo on that, and now I have d4. Forcing the knight here. If the knight takes my bishop, I have a queen, right? So forcing the knight here, and now I have bishop d3, establishing a wall here. And now I can just bring my king and win. Insane, right? And the bishop takes up here. It's a full-on wall. But then I was like, oh my god, he has knight c1. And my pawn is suddenly lost. Like if takes, knight takes. And so now I can do this, but now he has this, attacking my bishop. And now takes, and I wasn't sure about this endgame. I wasn't 100% sure this was completely winning. So I ended up playing knight takes d5 instead of d3. Bishop takes was not appealing to me. Bishop takes, I think there's knight takes here. So knight takes d5, threatening c3 with this whole variation. And now after knight takes, which I didn't like, there's knight takes f4. And suddenly I have this entire rip along this diagonal, attacking this knight and threatening the pawn behind it. And he still played fast. Knight takes, bishop takes. And I'm up a pawn, but it's as if I have a 3-on-1 here and my opponent has a 2-on-1 here. So this, and now I take 3 pawns up on the queen side, and my opponent has a 2-on-1 here. Very interesting. I have to defend though. So after knight b5, I have to find the right course of action to defend here, and I do. You see my pawn's attacked, but after a6, he wants knight c7, and my pawn is gone. Because my bishop can't come back to c8 because of this knight, or to f1 because of this king. So I play knight d5 first, attacking his pawn. If he takes mine, I take this, and then this one will not be that strong. So he has to defend, and now I play a6 with this c7 square taken up. No knight c7, winning this pawn. And so he sees this, and now he's like, oh, this is losing. He plays knight e8, knight c7, and after takes, bishop c8, I defend here, and I'm completely winning with these 3 queenside pawns. He resigns. Perfect preparation. I highly recommend the straight line method if you ever get it in your tournaments. And we move on to the next round, in which I played a super underrated player, a Smurf, if you will. This guy is rated 1600 national, 0 rated FIDE, extremely scary pairing, and has a performance in this tournament of 2200. So I saw what he played, just a little bit. He had very limited information on himself. So after e4, he goes c5, and after knight f3, he goes e6. And so if you've seen the past 15 minutes, you know that I go g3. But right before the round, he said to me, I watch your videos. Can we grab a picture? Before the round. So that tells me that he watches the videos and he knows about this from a few videos back at the time. So I had to mix up my strategy right before the game, change it up. So what I had seen about him is that he also plays the con variation. And so we go into this, and then he flips it on me and he goes, Taimanov. And so now I activate the flexible octopus. 95 overall, tentacles weave, theory snaps. Combat your opponent's mainline opening with a flexible sideline to steer away from the bulk of his knowledge. And that's what I did here. I played into his Taimanov, and here I played a line I rarely play online, and it's kind of like my lower rated opponent steer out of theory flexible octopus. And that is the Bastrikov variation that came public in the 2024 Candidates Tournament when Prague played this against Fallujah, I believe, and actually won. So knight b5, attacking the queen. Queen moves, and the idea is that you make the queen move a second time, and you use that time to develop here, and then your knight is quite nice on b5, and so black should play a6. And so a6 is the main move, and now you clear the square for your second knight. This is attacking the queen, so black has to take back, and now you play knight d4. I'm kind of like officially out of book here because I know that you have to castle and it's very smooth developing. It's very practical, intuitive opening, which is what I strive for against this type of profile player. You know, like lower elo, anonymous type of player, very little information about him, very few games about him. So he goes e5. I go knight b3. I was like contemplating all of these for a long time, but I settled on knight b3. And now he goes a5. Still zero development made. And I agree with his choices. Like a5 is really nice. He's threatening a4 to get my knight here to block my bishop and to gain space on the queen side. So I played a4. And officially black has 0 pieces developed after 10 moves. It's insane. So he goes knight f6. I go bishop g5. And I regretted this later. My bishop really belongs on e3 to support knight c5. But bishop g5 was to create bishop e7. So he plays that. And castles. And now he castles h3. So I want to go to e3, but I never liked bishop e3 because of knight g4. So now I get h3 in. And he does me such a solid. He plays h6 himself. Huge favor. So now I get the move that I want plus h3 in for free because h6 was played. Is that understandable? So I get the bishop in and I get everything I want out of this position. Good development, everything. And now black still has like some minor problems. Okay, bishop e6 could happen. So he goes b6. I go f4, opening up the center. And after takes, he plays what I thought he'd play. But actually, objectively, these two moves were less good than what he played, which is the blunder, because psychologically he didn't see that after bishop d6, blockading my threat, I have bishop takes h6. The bishop is off of this knight, and so now if the pawn takes, I take here, and I'm up a full pawn. And he played really well from here on out. He took a long turn here. He was clearly upset. He played bishop e5, attacking this pawn, and so I defended it with my bishop so that my bishop doesn't get taken because now the knight's defended. And he goes c5. Like he took like 2 back-to-back long turns and I was like very worried here. The bishop's going to activate here. And my pawn is just like, this is my pawn up. It's like an isolated, like rook e8's going to come and like it's an isolated bad pawn. So I had to figure out how am I going to combat this. So I came up with queen f3. Bishop b7 and knight d2. I want to go knight d4. So now he goes rook e8. And so now if I go knight c4, he can go check, king here, and bishop takes. And after bishop takes, rook takes. And I thought, oh my god, he's got the full pawn back. Engine comes up with this. Come on. b3 defending the knight and bishop b2 coming next, which is really nice construction. So anyways, I play king h1 first instead of knight c4. So as to not let him have check. So he goes queen c7, now knight c4, and it's reverse move order, so it's really nice for me. But this doesn't come with a threat. And now he plays bishop h2, and I go, what? It's a weird move. When it's not check, it's a weird move. And would it? Yeah, and there's no threat here. So I play the best move, bishop f4. And now I'm seriously a pawn up. And okay, let's zoom past this because I retained the pawn up, but I do get in a little bit more trouble here when I don't take the second pawn and instead play like a defensive move. We were both completely in a time scramble, and he finds this knight f2, very nice move. Takes, and suddenly I can't like win this pawn easily anymore, and these rooks have the only open file, and my pawn up is not looking that good on b3. And a few moves later, sure enough, he comes up with this. And I play this one. And then he plays c3, b3. And then he goes f5. And I'm like, wow. Okay, he has so much space. And this is such a weakness. Black might have full compensation for the pawn here. So I play rook d7. And he goes rook b6. And now I go check, king here. And I have a really nice idea. Bishop d5. To trade off these bishops. But I forgot to look for my opponent's candidate moves, and he had king d8 here. And if I move my rook now, my bishop is lost. So I have to go into this endgame. Takes, king takes, and takes. So I have 2 pawns, but I'm down the exchange. And the 2 rooks are very, very nice. It's winning for black. So he goes king e7. And I couldn't let my rook, my passive rook, stay here. So I had rook f3, takes, and I know I'm losing, but this is the best way to get practical chances, is that I have 0 weaknesses. Like my bishop defends this, and it's hard for black to win this pawn unless the king is here and the rook is here. And so he has to find like a set of moves that are very nice here. So king here, fine move. Bishop e4, and now he plays rook here. First move I don't like. I like king e5 and then preventing this one. So I like this setup, king g3, and now rook h6. And then the king can infiltrate, and then it can be winning for black. But he plays rook d6, I play king here, and then I'm suspicious, but then he verifies my suspicion. He goes rook d1. And I go, whoa! Not actually at the board, but in my head I'm like, whoa! Because now I can get liberated, freed from this f3 burden, and I mean, king e5, he has to prevent f4. So I go f4, we bishop rook d2, we trade, and now I go king f3. King h4, king e3, and we're both low on time, and I have a small trick up my sleeve in which I sacrifice this pawn for greater hopes in the future. And he said to me after the game, Zach, I was like, I can't believe Zach is giving a pawn here. And so he takes. And this is the trick. I go bishop d3 now, making way for my king to get on the overpass and take this c3 pawn. Otherwise, the rook just goes here and my king, like last move, instead of taking rook here and my king can never pass. But now it's not obvious for black to defend this. It's still objectively equal, but black has to play very particular. So king g3, king d4, and I win this pawn. And now I go for this one by shielding the king first, not letting this king in, so that my pawns and my action figures can do their thing. Rook h8. I'm defending this b3 pawn, so c3 can escalate, king f5, rook bishop, and I played all of this very fast. And here he has two moves to draw, rook c8 check, but the bigger plan is to go king e7. If he can get his king back here, he can eventually sack his rook for two pawns and equalize the game. But he plays king d5, which is his mistake, king e5. And it's not obvious that it's a mistake, but to me, I thought the endgame was just winning, but it's not. Like king e7 is draw. So king e5 is a mistake because I can just go b4. And his king is not really doing anything on the side of the board. He has to go face my king here. And the rook can't do that job alone because now I can block with the bishop. My king is such a stellar piece. And here he has to resign because my pawn is going to promote. Woo! I really escaped that game in like really nice fashion. So I have 3 out of 4. I'm doing pretty well in this tournament. For the last round, I play the second out of the top 5 seeds. I play the 3rd seed of the entire tournament. Round 2 was the 1st seed of the tournament, the Grandmaster, and this is FM Richard Zheng with the white pieces against me. Backstory about this kid, he's like 20 or 19, and we used to play when he was very young, like 13 or 14. And so, I didn't play during COVID, and then I went to Europe, and I came back, and he played chess the whole way through, and he went through puberty. He's really tall now, and his face looks completely different. So this is our first game in like 8 years. So I have only 10 minutes to prepare against him, but I saw a game earlier on in the tournament. The top 6 boards of this tournament had digital boards, so you could see what they played earlier on in the tournament. And sure enough, he went for this setup, knight f3, contrarily to what he usually goes for, d4. So knight f3, d5, and I had something super special against him. And the first moment of realization by him is when I played bishop d6. Just really an odd move. You're supposed to go bishop e7, but this is still playable. And so now he takes it slower. He takes a 3-minute turn. He's kind of emerging out of book. He's kind of worried. He goes b3, castles, and after bishop b2, I activate the gun slinger. 85 overall. First to draw, last to blink. Be the first to throw your opponent off. Get them out of book as fast as possible to level the playing field. And here, I did not play the second most popular move, not the 4th or 5th or 6th most popular move in this position. I played knight c6. The 7th most popular move in this position, with a very interesting set of moves prepared against this e3 poison construction by the white pieces. It's also known as Keimer's variation because Vincent Keimer established a lot of the theory and kept playing it with white. The idea is when your opponent plays knight c6, you're supposed to play d4 on the board and settle against this knight. And so this archetype of players is used to playing d4 as a reply to knight c6, which they don't see often anyways. But here I have my bishop on d6 instead of e7, which means I can go through a plan that's very interesting. I can take here. So he takes with the bishop. So b takes is the same reply. And so my idea is I go e5. So you take this, and now you challenge the center with this pawn promoted by this bishop and knight. And he is down on the clock by almost 20 minutes at this point in the game. 1 hour and 8 minutes. He's used 22 minutes of his time in 8 moves. He is suffering. He's calculating at the board. I'm doing laps around the tournament hall, looking at games from the D section. If you ever want to be entertained, go to the lowest section in your tournament and look at the games there. You will see positions you will never get in your life because they're so diversified, so rich, and so beautiful. There was one board, one of the last boards, had both kings started on d8 and d1, and they didn't realize it. They were like 20 moves into the game. So anyways, I go back to my board, and he finally plays d5. No, he plays d takes. So d5, I was kind of worried about because it looks like white gains a lot of space, but apparently it's super equal and black has chances with this dynamic knight e7, knight g6. So he takes, and he decides to equalize this position. And now I've gotten equality from the gunslinger, and we're into a middle game, and it looks like everything's shining. I'm castled. So that counts as a development. So we're 4 pieces development each. And the difference here is not great. So equalizing with black after 10 moves felt really good. But now I play kind of dubiously. So I go knight fg4. The hardest move in chess is the first move out of theory when you don't know. And for me, it's been a weakness. So knight fg4. If castles, I have some things with takes and queen g4. So he doesn't take any risk. He takes and I take. But now I just spent 2 moves for what, right? To get this knight that was not great off the board. Not excellent by me. And so now he goes knight e4. Scary move. He's threatening to do this, make my pawn structure unpleasant, and basically forcing out of me check. And now he goes king f1 after a very long time too. And now I go, wow. So what's the point? The king is weak, so I should keep queens on the board. I shouldn't trade the queens as to keep attacking chances later on in the game. But this knight is attacked, so I should go queen e7. But then I was looking at queen d4. I was like, oof. My knight is pressured, and behind it is checkmate, so I can't go knight c6. So then I thought, okay, I can play f6, but then he goes a3. My bishop is lacking squares. And so bishop here is pretty forced, and this, I don't like this position. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't play this. But this was the best line of moves. And so I traded queens, actually, giving my opponent an edge. Because look at this endgame. My opponent has everything. Every piece is developed except for these 2. And I have serious developmental problems. My knight is also attacked, so he takes and gains the initiative in the endgame. It's not looking good for the black pieces. So I go knight g4. I didn't like knight c6 because of bishop e5 and king e2, and then everything works for white. And I didn't like knight e7 because my knight doesn't have any future. So I settled for knight g4, and I knew it was not good. It's really not good. Like after g4, my knight has no squares. Choosing between several bad options is also one of the hardest things in chess. My opponent goes bishop f3 instead of g4. I was kind of shocked. So, okay. What do I want to accomplish as black? I want to develop my bishop, and I want to contest this file on the d file with my rook. It's hard to do so, though. So on bishop e6, just knight g5. And on bishop here, g4. So I have to find a creative way to not go with this plan and find another plan that's good for black. And I play a very nice move here. Pawn f6 first. Oh, this is not the moment. Okay, pawn f6 first, stopping the bishop and the knight, maybe preparing bishop e6. And now my opponent goes knight c3. So here I'm like, okay. He's preventing me from developing because of takes. So, okay, I'll play c6, which is something we've seen twice now in this video so far. Restricting the knight and restricting the bishop all at once. It's a super useful move. I highly recommend restricting your opponent's pieces. So my opponent goes knight e2, and that's his plan all along. He's playing 2 moves to play a third one and go knight d4 to take up these weaknesses that he's created. This e6 square notably because of my pawn pushing up to f6 and not guarding e6 anymore. And so I go a5. That was what I wanted to show you. This a5 move with a4 coming is my plan, my new plan. I don't want to play bishop e6, bishop f7. It will give something eventually to the white pieces. But with a5, a4, I can open up the A line and the disconnect of my rooks won't be a problem anymore because this rook will be active in the opponent's zone. So my opponent goes knight f4. I didn't like a4 because of a3 attacking my bishop and now b3. b4. So I go bishop e7 first, as to avoid this a3 b4 thing. So my opponent goes bishop e2, and now I should play a4. For some reason, this bishop c4 took all my attention completely because it's so, how can you not look at it? Like, so I spent a big amount of time here against this bishop c4, and I didn't play that well. Rook d8, bishop check, king here. This is inaccurate. I should have played knight f7. Only move for equality. That's how an FM, IM, GM outplays you. They'll restrict your number of moves that are prone to get to equality. Very nice play by my opponent. King e2. Now he connects his rook. His king is active. He's controlling all these entry squares. And now knight f7. So I got to get my knight back into the game if I want some drawing chances. And so I'm playing knight f7. So he goes check, forcing move. We have to trade. And now I give the bishop pair. And I think to him that was enough to say, look, I'll just beat him in the endgame with the bishop pair. Valid, to be fair. My last chance at equality is a4 and not caring about these rooks coming off the board. And this is where I kind of, I didn't play well from an objective point of view. As we said earlier in this video, if you want to try to draw, you have to eliminate the minor pieces and get a rook endgame. And here, I do the very foolish thing of not playing a4 and getting some play here, and instead I trade rooks. The exact thing you shouldn't do if you want a drawn endgame. And so here my opponent has the advantage because these bishop pairs are very strong. Long story short, I get into a heck of a lot of trouble until bishop b2 here, and I play bishop e1. My bishop is trapped, but I knew it would be trapped, but it's very complicated. He goes check first, and now he goes king f3, so my bishop is going to be trapped in 2 moves. And so I go c4, sacking a pawn, and so I go knight takes c4, and here he has a win. Takes, bishop here, and I think that was... No, that was not. Yeah, this was played, and now f3. And now white are +5. So here I just try to play my best till the end of the game. It's the last round of the tournament. I have to bring a result in, and I play a4. My opponent goes bishop d4, king c6, and now g5 takes. If I take here, my pawn will be out in the woods and takes, and I don't want that, so I defend very passively, and I try to bring a 2-on-1 on this side of the board. It's completely over. It's +5. f4, bishop e7, e5, e6, king here. He can take here, or he played c5. I take, he goes king c4. My pawns are falling. I have to trade both pawns for 1. He takes here, and now I play bishop f8. He's completely winning. If he takes, I go here, g7, king here, and then I'm winning. So he can't take my bishop for obvious reasons. But he gives me some breathing air. He plays bishop d4. Bishop e5 is winning by far because on bishop d4, I have bishop h6, and he can't take my pawn quite yet because I have bishop takes. If the bishop were on e5, just king takes, and it's completely dead. So now he has to take and give me back a pawn, so I'm down only a pawn now. King c4. I go back here, so my plan is this bishop will serve as to defend against this pawn, and this king will serve as to defend against this pawn. And so he plays c6, opens up his bishop. I play f4, and then he just circles around with his king. I can't do anything. If I go here, he goes g7. And if I go here, he goes c7, right? King here, this. So my bishop is completely constrained to this diagonal. So I go bishop d6, bishop c7, and I try to meet king g5 with f3. And now he goes king h6. If my bishop is here, it is winning for white. I timed this perfectly. Here I have a tactic to equalize the game. And we have minutes on the clock. I find bishop f8 check. What a move. This bishop is now constrained here. So if g7 takes, he has to take with the king, not with the bishop. So king, and then king d6, and I win the pawn. So he has to play a king move. And now this check cleared the square for my king to go here, and my pieces have now switched roles. My king is on this pawn, and my bishop is on this one. And after king g8, bishop here, bishop here, he has to go for bishop c5. And I'm sacrificing a bishop completely knowingly. But the rest is forced. King takes, bishop takes, f2, g7, f1 queen, g8 queen. And here I go queen check, bishop here. If the king moves, I'm trading queens next move with queen here. So bishop move and queen here. And this is already a very rare endgame. But this is already a draw because he can't block. I take and it's a draw. He can't go here because I go here. And so he goes back, check, and this is a perpetual. If he goes bishop here, I go here, I win. I win a draw. And if he goes here, I trade. So we trade, we go back and forth, and I go here with a draw. And after the game, we both didn't know what was his mistake. His mistake is king h6, because here he had g7 idea, forcing my king down, and now king g4 winning this pawn. f2, bishop takes, and now I thought, okay, but then just king takes. But now he has bishop g3, and it's completely winning. He's trading bishops, and then c7, c8, and it's over. We both missed this. And so I got a draw against an FM, bringing my total CFC national rating up to 2209 plus 77 on the month. And I qualified for my first master tournament out in August, which requires either 2100 FIDE or 2200 plus CFC, which I now qualify for. And so in early August, I will be playing my first master tournament in my entire life, filled with Grandmasters, International Masters, FIDE Masters. I'll be like the 5th to last seed in a 40-player Grand Slam tournament. It's going to be the thrill of my life. Until then, I hope you learned a ton on preparation and how to use those cards I showed you to prep for your games. Scan the profile of the player you're playing against. Try to go for something specific, like the endgame if you're playing a lower rated player, or if you think you can get them. Let me know if you apply these methods in your own tournaments, and let me know your results from them. I do check comments months after I publish videos, so I really want to know your results. DM me on Instagram if you want to tell me personally about your results. I'm there too. And like and sub for more. Thank you so much for watching.